this is one-on-one experience from Africa to America.
Well, I tell young people they're descendants of kings and queens that were enslaved in America. That's a game changer. When I was a kid, all I heard we were slaves. We were more than slaves. We were the bulldozers for bulldozers, jackhammers for jackhammers, and engineers for engineering degrees, which means what? We built this place. So when you come in here, here's what I tell you. I say Roots 101, and you say our house. It's like with a basketball game or football game. I'm going to say Roots 101, and you say our house. Ready? Roots 101. Roots 101. Roots 101. Welcome to our house. It tells the story of the African American journey, who we are and what we are, and what we've contributed to America. When kids come in here, they never leave the same. When adults come in here, they never leave the same because we tell the story. We tell the story that 365 days a year and not just 28 days of a month. If you've been following what we're doing, we've been nationally recognized in the top 10 museums in the country. We just recognized the top 6 new museums for 2023 by National Geographic. So we've had national acclaim, but we've been more treasures than getting treasures. So we're still working on the dollar amount for donations for corporations. But that's part of the story we're telling. We know our story doesn't supposed to be told or hasn't been told for more than 400 years. So to tell that story for 365 days is a game changer for some people to hear that, right? But I'm here to make that game change. When you come in the museum, I'll tell you it's Roots 101. I told you we're descendants of kings and queens that were enslaved in America. That's a game changer in itself. So when you come in the museum, we're going to do some AARP exercises. So while you sit, I may tell you to turn, look, and come back, okay? So first thing I'm going to tell you is turn right there to that horse right behind you. Everybody see the horse? That's a bronze horse. Most of us came from West Africa, Ghana, Senegal, and places like that. And we came here with the skill set of doing the best bronze work in the world. When you look at that piece, it's made of bronze. It detaches. The warrior comes off the horse. In America, they didn't make the first toy to the 1960s to detach a G.I. Joe. Africans were doing it in the 17th century. When you look at pieces made of bronze, and in Africa, they were known as great beekeepers. And there were such great beekeepers, they had a technique called a lost wax technique, where the Africans would take their hands in the wax and mold the bronze to like that. And that's why it's more sophisticated than any country in the world. But these brothers were so bad, what they also did, everybody know about Derby time. We all talk about horses, right? All right, let's talk about horses. Same thing I tell Churchill Downs. When we talk about Churchill Downs, they talk about the first 17 out of 24 jockeys, black jockeys, won Kentucky Derby. We've heard that story, something like that. But think about this, even when I tell Churchill Downs, even Africa connected to Churchill Downs. They say, how's that, Mr. Lamont? I'll tell you how. They called the black jockeys horse whisperers. Well, if they're horse whisperers, meaning they talk to the horses and then beat the horses, right? That's the nature of Africa. They talk to the animals, they talk to the wind, they talk to the air. That was the African nature of spirituality. So if these young boys, 13 and 14, before they get on those horses and talking to the horses, that means what? They were connected to Africa. So even you talk about Churchill Downs, you can't talk about Churchill Downs without talking about Africa. Because we had horses in Africa long before they came to the United States. So when those little boys are getting those horses, their forefathers already talked to them. You don't have to whip that horse. Talk to that horse, a horse whisperer. And then if you come through, you see all these artifacts, these original 17th century artifacts I have in the museum. And you look on that back wall, it says Faces of Africa. Africa is a continent. And the coolest thing about Africa, to show you how black people connected, look at all those different masks over each region and how similar they are. There's not a continent in the world that transforms artwork like this to where everybody, no matter if they never met each other, their spirit and souls were connected, even through the artwork. That was black people. You look on the wall over with the queens. Everybody see the queens? How many queens I got in there? Put your hands up if you're a queen. All right, let me give you a story on these queens. When you come in this museum, I tell young black people that black men have loved black women since the beginning of time. Only the story that America told us is as if we didn't love our women, furthest from the truth. We loved our women so much, we didn't tame cats and dogs. We tamed leopards and lions to protect them. See the leopards and lions? That's some bad brothers, right? And how much they love their women. So when you switch over there and go over here, you see these thrones right here. You see the lower throne. That's where the king sat, the chair, the throne. And then you see the higher throne. Everybody sees that? That's for the queen. You know why it's for the queen? Because in Africa, held their queens in high esteem. So every time she sits, she has to sit higher than a man. Again, some bad brothers, right? So you came from love. You came from loving their women and loving their families and men being kings along with their queens. And that's not the story America tells us. And as you come back on this side, back over where the queens, and in this museum, when I designed the museum, here's what I wanted. Our story was never told in history books, but we know black men, whether they went to school or not, they could build anything they could touch. And then when you come in this museum, I ask any kid to touch and feel everything in this museum. I'm not like most museums where you can't touch it. I want you to touch it because this is why I want you to touch it. I want every black child to come in and touch that, knowing that somebody looked like him created that. And then I want every white child to come in here and touch that, knowing that somebody that looked like that child made that. Everybody learning at the same time. And as you come through that, you see, how many of y'all look at Price is Right? Remember the show Price is Right? Which one had Vanna White? Okay, I need Vanna White. Can I get a Vanna White? Can somebody be Vanna White for me? Come on, Vanna. Come on up, Vanna. You get your hands. Now, here's our Vanna White. So Vanna's going to take us through this. Okay, Vanna, what I want you to do is walk right over there to that piece right there. I want everybody to look at that piece. That is telling you the journey of Africa and our Middle Passage. And here's what I want to show you in this piece of artwork. This is about a 17th century piece. Here's what I'm showing you. I'm showing you what we went through coming over here. You said, I don't see anything significant, but here's what you see. If you go to the first person with the gun, go all the way to the front. Look at his face. Face of a European white man. Would you say that? Kind of look down. All right. Then go into the middle where the man's whipping the woman in the middle. Look at his face. Look at his face down there. Now, what did he look like? A black man. So when slavery started, the first thing they did was put us against each other. So even in the passage, they've conditioned black people to whip black people, even coming to slavery. And then the back of the piece, look at the sister with the cargo box. You ever think of a pregnant woman going on a voyage to be a slave? That's what you see there. And then on the back one, you see a European with the gun in the back, showing you that slavery wasn't just mental, it was physical. And because the mental part stayed with you and the physical part hurt you, right? But that's the game they played. So if you come over here, Vanna. Okay, Vanna, go over to the fist. You see him? Start with those two right there. Put your hands out. All right? How many of y'all remember the 68 Olympics or remember seeing pictures of the 68 Olympics? Brothers with the fist in there. 1968, saying, hey, we're black, we're proud, we're collective. Check this out. 17th century, African artwork already said our pride collectively and power was in the fist. 17th century. Our people already told us that. We divided from the story, but they told us what the glory was. If you come over to the last one, it is a king held up by his queen, telling you the things collectively we do as black people. Long before we ever came here. All right, Vanna, thank you. Come on, Mike, over. I'm not through with you, Vanna. But everybody clap for Vanna. Okay, Vanna, you know what? I need you to do a little more walking. See over there, you see a set of chains over there on their desk. I need to get those for me. All right. You see them? Oh, wow, you went to the right place. What Vanna has here is a set of chains more than 400 years old, originally from Ghana. Okay? When I showed you the things we created as black people before we came to this country, you could see the intelligence, you could see the mathematics, you could see everything we came with to this country. But when we got to this country, they said what? You were less than human. Matter of fact, you was 3/5 human. Well, that don't even add up, does it? Does it? But if I didn't tell you history, you wouldn't know that. But it's showing you what you've done. But supremacy had to find a way to make you feel that you were less than human. So when you were a little kid, you ready, man? Go right over to that bell. How many of you remember seeing that bell coming up in school? The Liberty Bell, right? They talk about in the Liberty Bell, they talk about the crack in the bell, about how it cracked on its way over to America. Okay, go ahead and ring it, man. Oh, you can do it a little harder than that. Go hit it a little harder. All right. With school, they talk about the crack in the bell. It was never the crack in the bell. It's the crack in the foundation of America because it didn't include you. Every 4th of July doesn't include you because you weren't even a citizen in this country. But in school, they want to talk about this crack. But the crack is the foundation in where we came. So when you go back there at Banner and the crack in the bell, I already told you it wasn't about the bell, it was about the crack in the foundation. You come into America. And when you come to America, this is what happens when you go back to this room. Come on, Banner, you're going to do you one more time. Banner's going to come to America. All the things she's created, all the things she is, intelligent she is as a queen. She came to America and they said, welcome to America. Tell me how you feel when I did that.
It's heavy.
No words, right? Come on, my man. Can you make it up? Come on up. Thank you. Take your time. Take your time. I take 2 more people after this one. All right. I'm going to say, welcome to America. Tell them.
Heavy. You feel like you're bound up.
See, and what I talk about is, it's not the weakness of slavery, it's the strength in slavery. What it took to get through to where we are today. When kids don't understand what the struggle was and how powerful you had to be through the struggle, they don't understand the struggle. But something though, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
You cannot imagine.
Yeah. No, you can't imagine. Next up. Thank you, sir. Come on. Right here. Put your hands out. I'm going to say, welcome to America. You ready?
Yes.
Welcome to America. What do you think?
To America. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You have any feelings about it? I got you. I know. Cool. Okay.
And I am special.
Yes, you are special. You're a king, my brother. All right? All right. Thank you. All right. How beautiful that is. So you come to America, and when you come to America, if you look in that corner, if you can see, you see that statue back there in the corner? Can everybody see that statue? You got to wait till you get there. It's on this corner, right across from the bell, back by the light. See that statue? A man pulled back. Can you see that? Okay, if you can't see it, here's what's going to happen when you see it. It's what I really teach this museum on. What you see is an enslaved person on a pedestal. And the first thing you notice on this person is a mouthpiece in his mouth. Why do you think they got a mouthpiece in the mouth? Because the first thing America wanted to do was to take your voice away. No voice, no power. Even in 2023, we're fighting for a voice with power. Even today, connections to Africa. So anyway, they take your power away. You can't speak, can't talk. And then they on this thing, you see his rib cage, how weak and frail, like poverty. You don't have enough food to eat. Well, we're still dealing with that in 2023. We don't have enough food to eat as people. And then if you look at his legs are strong how people were. And then you see his back is straight. So even in the time that he should be bent over, the brother's standing straight up going through the struggle. That's what we come from. So when you go back here, when I have little black kids back here, here's what I tell them. What if our black boys at 5 years old heard they were descendants of kings and queens? Would they walk different? Would they talk different? Would it be different? They heard their history. Jewish kids at 5 years old hear this story that they're survivors. But Jewish people came in on a steamship. We came in on a slave ship. No clothes, no shoes, broken families, broken language. And every Jewish kid understands they're survivors. What if our kids understood that we were survivors? And we've been surviving since the time we've been here in America. So if it's a dictionary picture of survivors, what would it look like? Black people. So what if we understood that story, that we're surviving? And then you go back in the back, you'll see images on the wall of the 1800s when black people were still coming out of slavery. And when you look on the wall, you see Abraham Lincoln. We all know who Abraham Lincoln is, right? Who was Abraham Lincoln? 16th president of the United States, right? What was Abraham Lincoln known for? Freeing the slaves, right? Well, let's go a little deeper on that. The only reason they freed the slaves because the South was losing the war. Outmanned, outnumbered. They had to find a way to win the war. And the only way they could figure out to win the war is ask black people to fight for the South, fight for the North. But here's what people want to talk about. Before they went to slaves, they went to white people and said, look, I'm going to give you $300 for every slave you got. So reparations started with white America, never started. They worried about us reparations. America started on reparations to white Americans. $300 for every slave that's going to fight in a war when they were slaves to fight for freedom of America. $300. Then Lincoln looked at black people and said, look, I need y'all to fight this war. I'm going to give you 40 acres of the mule. Well, we got that 40 acre mule, right? No, we didn't get 40 acre mule. But here's what black people got. What black people and young people need to understand. We got the right to vote. Black men voted because black women couldn't vote at the time, women's suffrage. Black men, the ones that the TV commentators come on and say black men have never been involved in politics in life. First of all, the truth. Black men have been involved in the political process since we've been here. So here's what's happening. They tell the black man, okay, we only 40 acres mule, didn't get the 40 acres mule, but got the right to vote. And black men voted. And they voted. And they voted. Black men voting at 60 and 70% clips in the South. Winning elections. Black congressmen, black senators, black people doing it big. But what happens in America when black people do it big? Racism comes down. So it's not black people wasn't doing nothing, we were doing something. And we did something, that's when racism, Ku Klux Klan, all that raised its ugly head and said, wait a minute, we said y'all were less than human. How can you be running our government for us? And black people were. They started putting Confederate statues up saying the South is going to rise again. All the things that tried to intimidate black people during that time. The fear that black people are going to run government through a crutch in white America. And you see that same crutch come up. We got a president named Donald Trump. So anyway, so we're leaving. We're in the South. We're running elections, and all of a sudden, they start putting jelly bean laws in effect. We had to count jelly beans to vote. They start putting poll taxes so you could vote. They start locking black men up for being out at a certain time of night and putting a penitentiary system for free labor. Racism started working double hard to stop the progress of black people. And as I go through this, I want you to feel the flavor of what's happening during this time. So all of a sudden, we're free. And all of a sudden, you're on this wall. And when you turn to your left of the wall, you see the images of black people change. They're looking from human to apes and monkeys. And the reason they start putting your images of apes and monkeys because they already said you wasn't human. You're proving that you were human. Now they got to change the image. Just like changing the newspaper, like changing the movie screen, just like images we see today. If I wanted to depict what you are, I'm going to show it on TV and tell you what you are, right? So back on the wall, you see all these images of us looking from this way to looking like monkeys and apes. Simply to take taking power back away. But on the back, when I talk about history, I talk about everything. I have a box in the middle of the room. And the box says nigger hair. A product that was sold in the 1915s, 1950s and said nigger hair, chewing tobacco. Right in the middle. And then when I go to schools, I hear kids say that in the hallway. And I have to pull them to the side. The most hateful word in the world, where they call black people that name all over the world. Black women raped for it, black men hung from it, black children killed for it, and we use the word like it has no sting and it's no history. So I tell young people the word must die. Say that word must die. And I explain to them why that word must die. It's not a moment in time, it's a history in time. A history in time that black people have to deal with since we've been in this country. So why you allow a rap star to make millions of dollars using a word that he may not even use at home? Why you allow them to use a word and talk about schools that their kids don't attend? Talk about neighborhoods they don't live in anymore. Why we allow people to continue us in a history of the past that we need to move forward? So I tell young people that word must die. And when I leave the schools, I get phone calls from teachers, Mr. Lamont, for at least the first 2 weeks, these kids are listening. They understand their history. So if you understand your history, I always say, I teach the future and not the past. Because if I teach the future, we won't repeat the past. That's important to Roots 101. So back there, you see those images of that. And then you see a box, plastic box. And on this plastic box, what this one has is, it has Auntie Mama pancakes, it has Auntie Mama syrup. It has all the things where black people were in front of the cans because we were known as the best cooks. Everybody remember that time and frame? And here's what I show young people. It ain't about being on the can. It's about owning the can. America had no problem putting black people in front of the can. Still don't have a problem. But it's about ownership. It's not about wearing Nikes and not wearing Adidas. It's about owning Nikes and owning Adidas. And that's what I show them back there through history. Turn around the corner. How many of you heard Billie Holiday? There's a mural right there, Strange Fruit, showing a black man hanging in the South in the 1950s. And the reason I have that to show that the harshness of history and what we came from. But back there, this puts perspective on the past and the future. 1950, black men hanging like trees, like strange fruit. Billie Holiday sings about it. America goes after her and ruins her career for singing about it. A Jewish man wrote about it. He's the one who wrote the song. But here's what's happening. When you look back there, you see these images of Negro go home. You see the South is going to rise again. You see all these images back there. All from black people running the South. Okay? But here's what happens. 8 years of Barack Obama. And what did you get? Donald Trump. The fear of black people running this government at the time. So black people winning elections at the time Barack Obama was president, all white, not all of white America, a lot of white America had the fear factor that you're going to run this country again. So what happens on January 6th in this country? People fighting to get this country back, for somehow they thought they lost it to you. History's shown us that before. The hate's there before. The history, the playbook on hate is already there. You had a president that played that hate book. He gave fear that black people were going to do this, fear Mexican people were going to do this. America already knew that Trump book. And some people voted for it again. Think about that. That's why when people talk about CRT and history, what are you afraid of? Just let us tell our story. There's nothing to be afraid about. But I know some things to be educated about. We shouldn't be afraid about. So when you come out that way, you come over here, and I have a section called The Great Equalizer. It's dealing with Negro baseball. Everybody knew Negro baseball? But when black people had their own baseball team, their own restaurants, their own taxi service, black people doing it big. What happened when we do it big? Here's what happened. There you go. They came to the players and said, look, we want you to integrate. We want you to come play with us. And you play with us, one day you can be owners of a team. Well, 2023 ain't one black person on any major sports team in this country. 2023. But let me go a little deeper. Super Bowl Sunday, you have one black coach in the NFL. This is last year's statistics. You have 70% of the black players on the field. And at halftime, 99% of people entertaining you what? Black people. So even in 2022, we're entertaining America and not owning anything in America. Crazy? Well, let's get a little deeper. This side is about sports. I'm showing heavyweight champions and people, black men dominating sports. All right. 1980 to 2018, black men dominated boxing. Would you agree on that? Dominated. And all of a sudden you get the WWE. World wrestlers, created athletes, because black athletes are dominating sports. You ever think about that? This is how serious this thing is. And then they had a movie called Rocky. Won Oscars and everything. And even gave him a statue as if he was a real person. Think about that. A statue as if he was real. So we go upstairs. Before we go upstairs, this piece right here is replicating Louisville and Indiana. This side's Louisville, and we had slavery in Kentucky, which I told you before. And you had what they thought was freedom in Indiana. Because you got to the other side of the river didn't mean you were free. There were slave catchers and everything on the other side of the river. So everybody tracks like if a black person got a boat and went across that river, he was free. No. Because you have freedom fighters want to bring you back to Louisville. So I got that to show you that. And then people don't realize that Kentucky, what kind of state was Kentucky? It was a free state, a slave state, right? But we didn't have cotton fields. We had tobacco fields. But you know where the wealth of the wealth of Kentucky came from? Breeding state. They breeded black people like cats and dogs. They have farms that they breeded black people. You ever heard the thing that says going down river? Going down river originated in Kentucky because they would take the slaves and put them right there on the Belle of Louisville, not the Belle of Louisville, but one on the steamboats and ship them down the river, right here in Kentucky, shipping black people down the river. So if you go upstairs, I have this called the We Fought for Freedom. I told you black people fought in every major war in this country, and that's what that's about, black Civil War soldiers. And they got benefits, which we just now found out that some soldiers got benefits. And the reason they got benefits, they were able to keep up with the names. But some of the problem with black soldiers were, one, their name was whatever the master gave them. So how can you keep up with that? The other thing was they were named after property. And the third thing, they were named after whoever the president was. So blacks were Washingtons, Jeffersons, Lincolns, and all those things. And that's why Malcolm X used to say X for his name, because we never know the history of our name. But that's what was going on there. So we found out that blacks were getting benefits. We were able to trace some families back, a group called The Reckoning that I did this with. So I had this, and I'll be taking this out in a little while. And then the back of that, I have Roots of African American Music, where I have the dress of Marianne Fisher, who sung for Ray Charles. You ever seen the movie Ray Charles? She's the first one who puts his hand around the wrist. She's from Louisville. She sung a song called What Kind of Man Do You Think I Am? She's the only Raylette that had a lead song. She's from Louisville. You see Midnight Star. You see Nappy Roots. You see all the musicians out of Kentucky in that section. The next section is called the Allen Hotel, the Green Book. Everybody heard of the Green Book? Green Book was a hotel that created for black people to go to. It was a book. It told you where to go, how to travel, what time to be there. And I remember when I was little, we would go to Alabama, and my grandfather had a book. I never, he'd hide it from you, but he'd have a book. We'd leave at the same time, stay in gas station, food in the car. You didn't eat at restaurants because they were trying to protect us at the time. This Green Book was designed because black people working in the 50s and 40s at Ford. They was working at Chrysler. They're working in the North and sometimes working in the South, working in plants. They get brand new cars. Black people were pulled and killed out of cars traveling through the South. We talk about driving while black. That started by the time black people started driving, if you had some luxury automobile. So in the Allen Hotel, churches and preachers got together and black insurance companies, and they came up with this book on how to travel safely. That room up there is the Allen Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a 55-room hotel, full service on Madison Street. So if you came to Louisville, that's a lot of places people will stay to be safe in this country. And then I always tell people, how many of y'all drove to the South? Remember going to Big Mama and them in the South? Anybody get in the car? Okay. Well, when you went to the South, those that went to the South, what you would see in the South were crosses on the field. You remember ever seeing the 3 crosses on all the country farms you go through? And we're thinking it's about Easter, it's about the thief on the cross. No, it was a KKK, letting you know you were in their territory and you better drive through. So when you go through the South, you see this throughout the South. And that was to tell you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Isn't that crazy? So you go past that, and I got another room called my virtual reality room. No, my best narrative book. I mean room, and what it is, it's the magazines of the Crises magazine, the Black Scene, the PEP, uh, uh, the Christian Leadership. All these are different magazines Black people wrote about themselves to give them pride to do what they had to do. When you go in that room, you see all these old magazines, the Ebony. You see, the Black Scene, which is a magazine here in Louisville for Black people at the time of the 70s. You see that. So you see everything positive Black people are reading about themselves and writing about themselves in that room. Next room is my podcast room. I have a podcast room. Any kid that in the Black Student Union in Jefferson County can come down here and do their own podcast. So I want to encourage kids how to talk, how to walk, how to do the things they need to do. So they come here and they do a free podcast.